Now, back to more of Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theatre. And your host, Lisa Condon.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here on the phone with Gina Rattan. She is the Associate Director of Bandstand, which is one of our Broadway tours coming to the Hanover Theatre next season. Bandstand is coming March 19th through March 22nd. I am so excited to see this musical. I hadn't seen it before. And Gina, welcome to the program. Tell us all about it.
Hi, thank you so much. Bandstand is a musical that was on Broadway in 2017 and tells the story of war veterans coming back from World War II who form a really special bond making music together, and also one widowed woman from World War II. Her husband died in the war, and the bond that she then creates also with this band making music.
You know, I think that the backstory is really interesting, and it's still so relevant today, and people still seem to feel the same sense when they get back to a home that is completely changed. But what's special about this is it's an original musical, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And there aren't a lot of original musicals out there at this particular time. There are a lot of remakes. There are a lot of, based on the movie. But tell us about the story and who really created it and what's been your role as the Associate Director.
Absolutely. So Bandstand was created by a fabulous creative team, as you said, originally for Broadway. So it's not based on a movie, it's not based on a book or a TV show or anything like that. It's truly based off of the imaginations of the fabulous team, Richard and Rob, who wrote it. And then it's in collaboration on Broadway with Andy Blankenbuehler, who was the director-choreographer, and Greg Anthony Rassin, who did these sort of brilliant musical arrangements for it, because it is every bit of 1940s style music that you could possibly imagine and love. It's really such a treat, both musically and also in the staging and the conception of the story. So my role, actually, I'm directing the tour. So I'm working with everyone from the original Broadway team, but putting the show up on its feet, casting it, and reinvigorating the piece to go on a national tour, which is a really exciting gig. And it's really fun to dig into this material. It's tough, as you say, right, because dealing with PTSD, with war veterans, with certainly the expectations of a community when veterans return from war, and the expectations of the veterans of their community when they return from war. All of those things are examined in the musical, along with a bunch of singing and dancing. So it's really sort of an epic and very emotionally moving piece. There is heartbreak, and there are also great soaring moments of triumph, all through the music and the staging and the beautiful sort of scene work between the actors. Something that's really singular, I think, particularly about Bandstand being an original musical, is truly everyone in the piece has to be a triple threat, and then we are asking some folks to be quadruple threats. So people play their musical instruments on stage.
Wow.
Which is an amazing, amazing thing, because, of course, it is about people making music together. So we have folks that play the piano, the drums, the saxophone and clarinet, trombone, and bass on stage, and then two star singers who are all part of the band that's formed of these war veterans. So those are our serious quadruple threats. So you could also say that the folks in the ensemble are very much also quadruple threats, because they have to swing dance, and there's some really fabulous moves going on there.
Oh, I cannot wait to see that. And, it's thrilling listening to you just talk about all of this talent all rolled up in one place. And that's really special for us to observe, too. I personally think that the talent shows, the reality shows that are on TV, have really helped expand people's appreciation for performing arts in general. And this is like being right there live in a production that has really done well in Broadway. And you can tell when you preview the show on our website, thehanovertheatre.org. And, of course, You can always Google Bandstand the musical as well, and the behind the scenes clips, like you said, the star singers. It's just a phenomenally uplifting, it seems, musical that definitely has those poignant moments that stop to make us think. So I am excited to hear more about, taking that Broadway production and translating it onto a tour, because I always think to myself, wow, the schedule and just the mechanics of breaking down the whole set and then packing it up and then you move on to the next city. Tell us a little bit about some of the adjustments that you made, or is this really the type of musical because it involves that live talent, like you said, that's easier to move?
That's actually a really great question. The kind of forming a show or reforming a show, the physical production, by that we mean the set and the costumes, the lights, the sound equipment, and sometimes even the pit orchestra. Every show from when it goes to a tour from Broadway has its own sort of special process, right? Because the needs of the shows are so different. So even, for example, with Bandstand, there are very specific needs about the actor-musicians on stage being able to hear themselves play their instruments, right? And also being able to hear the band. So there are specific sound needs. Of course, if you're standing on stage playing the trombone, it's a little bit trickier probably for you to hear the pit orchestra. So there are different sound needs for this show than there would be for another show where that's not an element. So there's a really fabulous team that work with the designers. So Worklight Productions produces the tour, and they work really amazingly with our designers. Scenic designer is David Corrin, the lighting designer is Jeff Kreuter, to really specifically get into, okay, what are the needs, and how do we then put them on a truck? How do we then build the set so it comes apart differently than it did in the Broadway show, because we have to get it off stage at different sized venues, right? Mm-hmm. On Broadway or in one theater all the time. And as you said, right, with this tour, we're in different spaces. So it's a fun, if you're into engineering, if you like to build anything, it's a really interesting process. Because it's a puzzle. It's sort of a backwards puzzle, because we have, of course, the original Broadway lighting design, original Broadway costume design by Paloma Young, original Broadway set design, and it looks, you're not going to look at it and go, this looks different. You're going to look at it and go, wow, how do they do that? And that's sort of the magic for us. Even with costumes, touring them, making sure, we wash them, of course, every day so the actors can wear them and have to dry them, and there's a whole schedule.
I bet there is.
There's a whole process, really, where you kind of go over, and like I was saying, it's sort of like a retrofitted process, right? We know what it looks like. We know what we want it to sound like, all of those things, and then we have to work backwards of, okay, so this theater is smaller than, most of the theaters are a little bit smaller than the Broadway stage. Great. How do we figure out how to make this set fit in all of those spaces? And also really preserving the original artistic intention of the space. In the piece, it's set in Cleveland, Ohio. They also end up going on a trip somewhere, but a lot of the action takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, right? So you're then living in this space for a bit of time. So the original design is really exciting because it's a set that doesn't change very much, but it is so rich in detail that you're not sort of like, okay, yeah, I get it. They're in Cleveland. What's next here, people? It's rich in detail. There's so many different exciting entrances and exits for dancers to make, and different sort of spaces that we employ for the moments where the characters experience PTSD, which is something that all veterans in one form or another have a level of familiarity with, and it's addressed in the piece through really beautiful and theatrical staging. And the set allows for those moments in a way that is unexpected. So there's lots of really cool artistic things that in collaboration with the more logistically minded folks that put the tours together, that we sort of dig into and go, okay, how are we going to preserve that? And maybe there's a different way to do this, or also, that's too fragile. Great.
Right.
How do we build that more sturdily? Or we want to make sure that piece of fabric doesn't tear, so let's do this. because, of course, they're used to packing it up and putting it on a truck and taking it off the next morning.
Well, it's so interesting hearing this behind the scenes, what's happening. Like you said, that backwards jigsaw puzzle. I also think our listeners will enjoy hearing, it's likely that most of them haven't seen this because it is an original Broadway musical. But the New York Times, it's called Bandstand, an open-hearted new musical that gets the crowd jumping. Now, if that doesn't get me excited enough, then Deadline said eye-popping, roof-raising, and astonishing. Wow. Okay. So now we know that it's going to be an exciting evening, and the set, the choreography, the costumes, everything's just perfect. If you wanted to tell our listeners if there's going to be one number that you think is really iconic and they're going to really enjoy out of Bandstand, what would that be?
Oh, my gosh.
I know, hard. Okay, you can call it 2. You can say 2 if it helps.
My goodness.
All right, 3 if it really helps.
Oh, gosh. Okay, now I'm feeling on the spot. I think it's called Nobody. I always call it Don't. You know who tells me stop, because that's my favorite lyric of the show is this, and the full lyric is, you know who tells me stop? Nobody. It probably is articulated more grammatically perfectly, but that's how it is in my brain right now. I love that number because there's something that I think you can really only accomplish on stage happening in that number. There's a mixture of defiance and hope, both in the music, or actually in 3 places, in the music, in the performance of the actors, and in the staging.
Fun.
And there's really, this sense of joy and but also fight, and those kinds of things coexisting in one kind of moment or one kind of storytelling beat. You can't really do on TV and film. You kind of can with the score and with sort of the look in someone's eye, but this is the full throttle stage experience of people saying, I'm not going to give up, and I know it's going to be tough, and it has been tough, and they're carrying with them a weight, and I think that's really beautiful. I also really like the song. It's one of the first songs in the show. It's called Donnie Nowitzki. It's the lead character, his solo, sort of, we might call I Want song, and in the song, he's in a hard spot, and the musical is quite brave because it does follow people to the difficult places, and it doesn't just sort of glance over them. And it's a tour de force song about a veteran coming home from the war and really trying to figure out how he's going to form a life alone. He's alone. He's totally alone. Well, he feels totally alone. That's certainly for sure.
Yeah.
And that contrasted with in one of the first moments in the show, and then you follow the journey of this character through all the way to the end of the show, and you get such a glimpse into the trials and tribulations, and also the triumphs and the joys and the setbacks. It's like life. You're not oh, his life is so easy. This is so great. It's fine. He's going to be fine. You're really kind of, oh gosh, navigating it with him, which I love. And my last favorite song, a great song. You said I could do 3 songs.
Yes, I love it.
It is called, it's actually called Who I Was. And it's sung by the character Julia Trojan. She is the role that Laura Osnes played on Broadway, and her journey through the show is one truly of finding her voice, actually her singing voice. Now, of course, the character can sing, right? But she becomes a professional singer throughout the piece.
Wow.
And also a lyricist, a writer. And these are things that she doesn't know that she contains within her until she joins up with other folks who are going through a similar thing that she is, right? She did not, in fact, go to war, as women could not go to war in World War II, but her husband died in the war, so she's also grappling with similar complicated emotional moments like these guys. In any case, Who I Was is this great song because she's talking about the conflict of kind of trying to be two people. The community perceives her as a Gold Star wife, which is a woman who's widowed by a fallen soldier, and she really feels kind of a pressure to fulfill that role, but also wants to go back to being the person she thought she was. The exciting part, of course, about the musical is that she forms a new person of herself. She doesn't have to go back to being anyone, that she can go forward. But I feel like that's something that a lot of women can identify with, a lot of people can identify with in the world, right? That we feel like, oh, I kind of have to be these two people. I have to be perfect at both of them. And this song encapsulates that. And on her journey through the piece, in the same way of Donnie's journey through the piece, yes, there is a bit of romance also that happens. We've got everything at Bandstand. They both are finding their own voice through he becomes a composer, she becomes a lyricist, and they find their voices through creating music together and telling the truth through that music. And I think that's something that's very, very important to the creators, the authors of the piece, right? This idea
Absolutely, yes.
They're coming back from the war and talking about difficult things, right? The musical's not just like, oh great, now it's 1945 and everything just like a light switch is back to normal. It's about that moment.
Well, you just did a fabulous job giving us 3 completely relatable examples of how we're going to love each of these main shifts and the whole story as well as the characters. So thank you, Gina, for your behind-the-scenes perspective here. It's been really interesting. Everybody who's listening, we're talking with Gina Rattan, who's the Associate Director of Bandstand, and Bandstand is coming to the Hanover Theater March 19th through March 22nd. That run is generously sponsored by Unibank, and it is currently available only as part of our Broadway subscription series, and that information is available on thehanovertheater.org. We spell theater with an R-E. Also, single tickets will be going on sale to the public August 8th for Bandstand, and again, information is available at thehanovertheater.org. Gina, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see you when you do come to the theater. And everybody stay tuned. We'll be back after this quick break here on Behind the Scenes with the Hanover Theater.